I am so excited to welcome you to another edition, another episode of Rethinking Freedom. And today, our topic is When Joy Feels Out of Reach, a holiday conversation on mental health. I am your host, Aya Fubara Enelli, and it seems almost unnatural to smile as I welcome you. For those of you who are watching us on our YouTube channel, thank you so much. Thank you for helping this channel grow. Thank you for subscribing. And if you have not yet visited us on our YouTube channel because you listen to us on our radio station, please visit us at YouTube at Rethinking Freedom. Subscribe and help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers in the next 30 days. We're so excited about that. So today on this very important topic, I have an amazing guest, and you all know that I only bring you the very best. And so at this time, I would like to introduce none other than Nikita Murry, Dr. Nikita Murry, and share a little bit of information about her with you. Dr. Nikita Murry is a native of Detroit who has grown to become a well-regarded advocate, communicator, and bridge builder. In her career and personal lives, Dr. Nikita Murry has been a champion for new voices, new experiences, and definitely helping us to understand the role of mental health and what it is we should be doing to take care of ourselves. On the way to earning her Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism from Michigan State University, she was the first Black female to serve as sports editor for the nationally recognized college newspaper, The State News. Her desire to be a sports reporter brought her to the mid-Michigan area, but the changing landscape for newspapers led her to pursue public relations instead. A passion for listening to the stories of others then led her to pursue a master's degree in professional counseling. Dr. Murry earned her Master of Arts degree in professional counseling and school counseling from Central Michigan University, where I used to work many decades ago. And she also earned her doctorate in counselor education and supervision from Western Michigan University. Among her specializations in professional counseling are trauma-informed services and holistic wellness. And if you've ever tried to find a therapist and you don't understand the difference between just a therapist and a trauma-informed therapist, that might be something that you want to research. As a mental health professional, Dr. Murry guides individuals through life challenges en route to accessing their personal and professional dreams. She also focuses on issues of inclusion and identity as part of her interest in multiculturalism and equity. This woman wears lots of hats, and today we're not going to get into hip hop, but if you wanted to have a whole episode on just hip hop, she would be the one as well. Currently, Dr. Murry helps to drive Central Michigan University's goal towards being an institution of equity and belonging as the Director of Diversity Education. And I do not envy her in this political climate for the kind of work that she has to do to create safe spaces for all peoples, and particularly people of color, members of the LGBTQIA community, because these are interesting times that we live in. She brings knowledge of psychological wellness and human development into the work of helping Central Michigan University to become an anti-racist institution. We may need her to go to Washington, D.C. to help at that level as well. She provides a series of professional development initiatives, workshops, and engagement opportunities for students, employees, and the community at large. But because that's not enough, she also runs a nonprofit called the Go Back Project, which stands for Go Building Academically Competent Kids. She also works with families of color on developing healthy relationships and restorative justice principles. She has served as a grassroots advocate for marginalized people for 30 years. I know Black don't crack. She does not look like it. She also sits on the board of the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence and the Children's Grief Center of the Great Lakes Bay region. Both organizations address trauma and grief within youth and young adult communities. And I would probably get into a lot of trouble if I don't mention this as well. She is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, where she serves on the Social Action Committee for the Midland Alumni chapter, and her work with Faith Ministries Church in Midland, which also used to be my church when I lived back in Michigan and worked at Central Michigan University. She incorporates all her identities into her work, and we are so blessed, so glad, so honored to have you as a guest here on Rethinking Freedom. Welcome to the show.
Wow, thank you very much. Listening to you read all of that, I just kept thinking, man, I want to sit in on this conversation with Aya and this person. They sound like they're going to have an amazing conversation.
It is an amazing conversation. And in full disclosure, I have known Dr. Murry for, I'm gonna go by the age of my oldest son. So he's 25. So I've known you since I was pregnant with him, or before I was pregnant with him.
Before you were pregnant.
Yes. So we're talking a lot of years, and there are times when you hear people's bios and you meet them and you're like, okay, that the two don't match up. And what I can say is that you are everything I read and so much more than what I read. And you have been a dear friend to me over the years, and I appreciate all that you bring to the table and just really your wisdom in terms of counseling. And so as we get into the topic today, it's the quote unquote holiday season. And I don't watch much TV anymore, but I am sure that there are all kinds of ads going on right now about what it's the most wonderful time of the year, and everybody's supposed to be smiling and having a great time, and so on and so forth. And yet, I do want to share a few statistics as we talk about when joy feels out of reach during this time of the year in particular. And so, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, 64% of people with mental illness report that holidays exacerbate their conditions. We might even need to talk about what is mental illness, because some of us may have a very different concept of what that looks like. Studies indicate that Black Americans are 20% more likely than white Americans to experience serious psychological distress, but are less likely to receive mental health care. The suicide rate for Black youth has risen faster than for any other racial or ethnic group over the last 2 decades. I remember a time, I'm old enough to remember a time when we said, Black folk, we don't kill ourselves. We don't do suicide. That's not our thing. And 55% of Americans, since that's our primary audience, although we have people all around the world who watch this show, report feeling lonely during the holidays. And so my question for you is, why is it that it seems like mental health issues, grief, depression, seem to be more prevalent during the holiday season?
You rolled a lot into into that. And we all have times of the year that we enjoy more than the other, right? So some people feel as though summer is their time. They love the heat, they love being, on the beach, or just the ability to be on the go with flip-flops and a t-shirt on, right? And then there are others who live for the cold weather months and the winter months and this time of the year. And so there are some components connected to this time of the year that are genuinely enjoyable for people just because of how they are wired as people. And that's separate from the marketing and the commercialization of this type of time of the year. Because if we're honest about it, all year comes with its own marketing baggage, right?
That's
Because
true.
there's somebody telling us what we should be doing at the beginning of the year. There's somebody telling us that we should be taking these spring break trips with our families. And of course, kids are getting younger and younger, and families are spending more money on more elaborate spring break trips than in the past. So in that regard, this time of the year is kind of no different. Um, I would argue that it's the time of the year when we probably feel the pressure differently than we do at other times of the year.
Mm.
We're closed in. It's depending on where you are in the country. It can be cold, it can be snowy, and it could be beautiful at the same time. And so when it gets to the commercialization part, there is the pressure that comes along with our finances and our ability to address or to respond to what we're seeing being
Mm.
marketed at us. And so if we're not able to do those things, then we're not having a great Christmas. We're not a great family. You're not a great provider or great person. If you're not receiving those things, it's not a good time. And so, like, when you think about how to free yourself from that and to connect it back to joy, one of the things I thought about, um, in getting ready for this was just like, what does joy mean? What does it look like?
Mm. What does
Define
joy mean?
define it, but you need to define it for yourself, right? And that's a place of empowerment, a personal empowerment. But one thing joy means is judge only yourself, right?
You
So
heard it here. Joy. Judge only yourself.
judge
Yes, ma'am.
only yourself. And so when we're seeing these commercials, you know, do those commercials, do those advertisements, do those built up pressures speak to you, because they speak to you, or are you responding to the accumulation of stuff and messages that are coming at you almost nonstop? And I'll give you an example. And I don't know, this may sound harsh to your listeners, but again, I go back to judge only yourself and do with that, do with that when what you want to when you hear it. But I stopped doing formal Christmas presents with my large family probably at least 10 years ago, around the time that I launched the Go Back Project. And I did it in part because I felt that I could never get it right. Like, I felt that I could never give the right thing, and I could never help my mom give the right thing. And I could always tell by the responses to what I gave. And so, and my family has been like that for a long time. And so there's some history behind that, just how we grew up, right, as Black folks. Um, and grew up with a mom, with parents who were laborers, and then with parents who had different ideas about how to spend the money and what priorities were. And so for our family, my mom was the practical one. And so the money that they brought home needed to be spent on things like, rent, food,
That part.
the utilities. But then for our dad, especially at Christmas time, he was the one who did the fun stuff, to the point that my mom talks about how my brothers would always say, Mom buys us the things that we need, Daddy buys us the fun stuff. So,
And I hear that in my family. I did not grow up with this commercialization of Christmas, because although I was born in this country, I was raised in Nigeria, and then when I moved back to this country, you just really did feel like, oh, this is how we need to do it. We need to have a Christmas tree, and we need to have ornaments and gifts under the tree, and all of these pieces that really have very little to do with the essence of the holidays. And whether you are Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whether you
mhm.
practice Kwanzaa, whatever it is, I think we all get impacted by these notions of, oh, well, other kids are going to get stuff. And what do your children get? Or how do you show that you're a good friend to your friends or to your coworkers with all the gift giving parties that occur and all of that. And so as a parent for a while, I fell into that, wanting to
Mhm.
create that magical Christmas as a Christian for my children. And every year after Christmas, I would go to all the sales, the 75% off sales, to get more and more Christmas decorations. You know, I wanted the
For the
nativity
next year.
scene
Yep.
and the reindeer, and what does that have to do with Christmas, and the lights and the, you know, and all of that. And I got to a point where I would spend almost 2 full days after Thanksgiving just setting up the house for quote unquote the holidays, and
Mhm.
then going through the stress of pulling it all down right after January 1st because we had to get back
Right.
into things. And then, you know, sometimes spending way more money than I needed to. And I liberated myself from that. You know, this show is called Rethinking Freedom. I rethought my freedom and I liberated myself from that about
Mhm.
6 years ago. I told my family ahead of time. So we have all these decorations, but I am no longer going to be doing all of this. And for 3 years, I kept the decorations to see, because they're old enough now, to see if any of them wanted to take on that decorating duty. And none of them did. And so one year I simply said to people, if you want it, come get it. I didn't even sell it. I gave it all away, pre-lit Christmas trees and everything else. And now I
Mhm.
simply don't decorate in that sense. And we have moved more into celebrating Kwanzaa, because for
Mhm.
me, I find the principles more meaningful in the activities that we do, and not just what I considered idol worshiping around a tree,
Mhm.
waiting for gifts, as opposed to even really celebrating the quote unquote birth of Christ. So I moved away from that. So I hear what you're saying in terms of the pressures. So I have not bought a single quote unquote Christmas gift. It's December 9th, and I'm not going to.
Mhm.
But I make homemade jams and I do other things, and I am gonna, and my children get what they need throughout the year. And
Right.
so yes, if you need some lotion and toothbrush and socks or whatever, you might get that as a Kwanzaa gift. But I'm just not into all the other stuff. But let's go back to this concept of mental health. How would
Mhm.
you describe mental health, and what is it that people should be thinking about in terms of, am I okay? What am I feeling right now? Is it grief? Is it depression? Is it just pressure? Am I really okay? When we talk about mental health, what are we talking about?
Right. So yes, and that was one of my notes for tonight as well. So what we have to do, even in judging yourself, judging only yourself, you need to know the difference between mental wellness
Mm,
and mental illness. So I don't spend as much time talking about the mental health part, because that could be it could be kind of confusing, and quite honestly it has become jargon in our
it has.
society,
It has.
right? And
That that
so
that and I'm triggered. Is it
right,
like
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, oh, don't get me started with that one. So what does it mean to be what is mental wellness? And mental wellness speaks to your state of being at any given time. So, and it could be healthy and it could be unhealthy. And so mental wellness really addresses your ability to identify for yourself where you are in this spectrum of feelings, emotions that your way of being at any given time. Whereas mental illness is very specific because it's diagnosable. Um, so so when we think about some of the statistics that we've heard um, over time that have helped create, right, this idea that people become more depressed at this time of year, we have to also think about who we're talking about. So when we talk about that 64% number,
Mhm,
um, and I've read it in other places too, and so that's a credible statistic,
mhm.
but those are people who are already diagnosed with some type of mental illness. So it's not the rest of us, unless the rest of us have been diagnosed as some
Diagnosed.
type of mental illness. And so you're talking about people who already live a life of struggling psychologically anyway, and all of this stuff that's coming at them is not making that any better for them.
Gotcha.
right? And so those are the people who hopefully are already plugged in with a professional, so that when we get to this time of the year, their lives are not, you know, any worse than it is at any other
They
time
have
of the year.
they already have some support
They already have some support
that
that
is in
they're
place.
able to tap into, whether it's their therapist or their psychologist, or if they go to some type of church, right? If you have a support system there that you can tap into, but some type of credible support system. And so we're not talking about those things that, then when we talk about what should you avoid, so for folks who already live a life with the potential of struggling, of course we want to encourage them to, yeah, don't tap into the eggnog this time of year. So just kind of focus on those things that can help affirm you and help keep you in a healthier path. So exercise, of like you said, Aya, avoiding television, avoiding the commercials. It may mean even avoiding the malls or limiting your trips to the store. If you have the means, have your items that you need from the store delivered to your home, rather than going out and being in the midst of what has become holiday madness or holiday traffic. And so avoid those things that are going to contribute, or more likely to contribute, to you feeling worse than you already do.
So as you were saying that and talking about people who have been diagnosed and hopefully already have that support in place, it made me think about the people who have not received any diagnosis, the people
Mhm.
who do not have access to mental health care, or maybe have the diagnosis, but they also do not have access to the
Mhm.
support or the medication that they need. What do they do during this period when they are trying to have that joy? They don't want to be the proverbial Debbie Downer. Um, in particular at this time, actually, let me stop there and I'll ask the follow up question because I don't want to
Mhm.
throw so much at you at the same time. But for those people who don't have a diagnosis, feel a certain way, what are some of the things that they should even look at that should make them say, well, maybe I do need to go see a mental health professional? Or if they know they already have a diagnosis, but they don't have access to the resources in the conventional sense, what are some additional things
Mhm.
that they could be doing?
Oh, yeah, those are two very different types of questions. So we're talking about the folks who feel as though they truly, or they genuinely are struggling with mental illness. Um, and we do want to see them not trying to be, not wanting to put us in the position of seeming as though we're offering mental health guidance through this.
Yes.
Yeah, through
Thank you
this
for that
podcast.
disclaimer. That's
Yeah,
right. We are not.
we are not. However, your local hospital is always a frontline resource for you. And if you feel as though you are in a position where you need help and you are going to harm yourself, um, if you say those words to them, they are obligated to provide resources for you. Now, I know we have some states that are a little different sometimes, and you happen to be in one of them.
Yes, I do.
However, they are supposed to receive you. The medical community is supposed to receive you. Um, I don't suggest calling um, 911 if you can take yourself to the hospital, right? Um, but tap into that resource. And if you believe that you are so distressed that you could potentially harm yourself or you could potentially harm someone else, by sharing that information, that doesn't put you in legal trouble. It does not put you in legal trouble. So you don't have to be afraid of the police or that you're going to be arrested. It just helps those professionals know the level of concern they should attend to you with. So that's why I'm saying be honest with them in terms of what you're feeling and how you're feeling, especially if you're feeling as though you have been harming yourself or you will harm yourself.
I have to be honest with you. As you're talking, I was, just being in touch with my emotions and suddenly feeling a little down.
Mm.
Because as you were speaking and you said, hey, I happen to be in one of those states. I know that in the state of Texas, one of the initiatives by Greg Abbott, the governor here, is to require medical professionals to report um, the citizenship of anyone that they provide care for. So I'm thinking of people who may be considered, which is a horrible term, illegal immigrants, because we're just all human beings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of, as you were also talking and saying, don't call 911, go to if you can go to the emergency room yourself and explain what you're feeling. I'm thinking of all the stories that we've heard of families or people who reached out via 911 to get help for someone who was
Mm-hmm.
in you having a mental health crisis and they ended up killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about how unsafe it is
Right.
for some of us to seek help. And so, given that, and as someone who absolutely believes in our traditional pathways to supporting and healing ourselves, historically, what are some of the things that communities of color in particular, have done to support ourselves through any season when we are struggling
Mm-hmm.
with our mental health? Because at this point, for me as a Black woman in America, it's not just the holiday season. It's this impending inauguration. It's Project
Mm-hmm.
2025. It's all the unknown that, every time I, hear about a new cabinet pick, it's beyond just holidays and reaching for joy in the holiday season. It's like, what else is coming? So what are some things that we have traditionally done? What are some things that you will encourage us to maybe get back to if we have gotten away from it?
And let me go back. I'm not avoiding your question, but let me go back and finish answering the one we were talking about in terms
Okay.
of what people can do and what are some potential resources. Because you're right. Sometimes when you need help, all you know is that you need help. You don't really know where to go for help. And so I am not, again, I don't know all of what's available in Texas, but if there is community mental health or something similar to it, that is an option. Your schools that your children attend, again, if and it could come with some risk in terms of the impact on your children, but it's an option. Like if you have a relationship with the administration at your children's school, or if you yourself are a college student, even if you're an adult returning student, you have options for resources for counselors within that environment.
Yes.
So church, if you are struggling with relationship violence or something that puts you in connection with a shelter system of some type, that's a place where you could potentially get some mental health, um, some help with your mental wellness. And then I wrote down something else. Did I say churches?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of those, all of those areas I mentioned have some type of both confidentiality built in and mandated reporting structure. And the mandated reporting structure is important because that lessens the option of people to just kind of blow you off or dismiss you.
Okay.
So that's why, and that's why I want to mention that for people who are, again, truly struggling and are in this different place than the other 36% of the folks who do not struggle in the same way because they are not identified with a diagnosable mental illness. Now, I want to say this too, because we want to get back to it. So earlier we were talking about how do you know the difference between what you're feeling at this time of the year? Like, how do you know the difference between are you sad? Are you blue? Are you depressed? Are you something else? And so what we have to think about and what we want to think about is what is normal for you and what is normal for the greater society, right? So
Perfect.
if you are continuously sad, and emphasis on continuously sad, you may want to talk to a mental health professional
Mm-hmm.
because it is not normal to be sad all the time.
That
And
makes
that's a
sense.
heavy, right, that's a heavy burden to carry. And so, and that's pretty cut or dry. So in some ways it doesn't even matter whether it's this time of the year or June, because you're sad all the time. And usually people who are sad all the time, well, I shouldn't say usually, people who are sad all the time and understand this about themselves have at some point tapped into a mental health system or process for themselves. And I would say if this time of the year is harder for you, go back to those people. If you need a refill on your meds, if you need to restart your meds, if you just need to talk to, like, if you just need a couple sessions with somebody, tap back into that. Now, I happen to have friends who have been very open with me about their journey with depression. And so, what I value about them and our relationship and what I've learned from them, and to use it to help me be a supportive friend, is when I invite them or I try to engage them during these holiday seasons and they say, "No, I'm really not feeling it. I'm just going to hang to myself." Like, I'll ask one or two other things to just make sure that they are okay, because after all, even if I'm not counseling them, I am still a counselor in my
Counselor.
head.
Yes.
um and so once I can determine that they are okay, I just simply say, "Okay, well, the offer is still here for you. You know, you're always welcome. I can drop you off a plate. I can drop you off a basket. I just need to know that you're eating, because you know we have this bomb sweet potato pie at my house, right?"
Yes, you
So
do.
I so I try to take the pressure off of them, and I honor how they're feeling, and their ability to say no, and not try to guilt them into doing it anyway. "Oh, well, you need to get out of the house anyway." Look, they just told you no. They're not feeling it. Why are you
Mm-hmm.
going to put them in a position of having to fake feeling something that they're not feeling, and potentially bring them into an environment that causes them to feel worse, or causes somebody to say something stupid to them, which then doesn't help either.
Right.
So, like, it goes both ways. Like, as individuals, we owe it to the people around us to honor what they need in that moment and let them have it, as opposed to us feeling as though, well, I'm a really good friend, so I'm going to talk you into getting out of the house, or I'm going to talk you into going shopping with me, or this other thing, right? Um, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is it's normal to be sad at this time of the year. Um, it's normal to be sad at this time of the year, knowing what we believe we will experience at the beginning of the year. Those are all normal. Those are all normal feelings. What I have done to manage how I feel about going into the new year is limit what I consume in terms of information related to, the new presidency, any of that. Because I know my tendencies, and if I let the wrong thing creep in, it is going to feed a degree of worry for me about things that I cannot control. And I put a lot of time and work into trying to control the things that I can control. I can control what I consume. I can control how much money I spend on holiday giving, right? And so when I said earlier that I don't do formal Christmas giving with my family anymore, I give to families that struggle at this time of the year, that are doing the best that they can do and just need somebody to say, we see you, and to offer a little hope. So that gives me joy, allows me to be this secret shopper and and feed whatever I need to feed. And for those families who are not where I am right now, okay, let me help you still have a great Christmas. Because one thing I do believe in for me, um, is the magic of Christmas for children, whatever that looks like. And here's why I say that. Even though I led with the story that I did about my parents and my brother's experience, I did not know that I was poor until I got to college. The reason why I didn't know that I was poor was because I always had an amazing Christmas. The rest of the year, was filled with the stuff that I needed. And even at Christmas, I got the stuff that I needed, but I also got the fun stuff too. And we were poor. So but as an adult, I get to make the decisions that I make about how I engage in this season, right? Children don't get that. They don't get to make those choices. So children want to be able to have what they need, and they also want to be able to feel as though they are not different or they are not worse than other children, right? And there's enough coming at them in society anyway to create these feelings for them. If making sure that they have clean socks, clean underwear, books to read, a new Barbie doll, or something healthy to play with, maybe it's not although Barbie is better now. I'm not gonna bash Barbie. Um, those are low hanging fruit for me, in my mind, for children, right?
Yes.
Because there's so much other stuff coming at children, and then let them grow and get to the place where they can differentiate for themselves. But for adults, it's a whole different game. So, are you blue? Are you sad? What's making you that way? Are you sad because you can't buy things for your children? Okay, don't buy things for your children. You can make the holiday magical in other ways. Learn what your children's and your family's love languages are. And so that's really what I learned about my own family. I just learned it too late, before I was scarred. But for those folks in your family whose love language is gifts, they need that. That's how they know that you love them. So what are you giving them in terms of, or how are you engaging them around gifts? Somebody else might be a quality time person, which was totally me. I didn't care what people gave me for Christmas. I cared that they were there, that they were around for me, that I had family there. So survive this time by taking the time to better understand your own family and the people around you. So when we say judge only yourself, judge only how you are tapping into demonstrating love for your family in the way, or the people around you in the way that they feel love. Secondly, there are things about this time of the year that just make us sad. Like single women are sad because they don't have a partner, right? Um, Folks in the military may be sad because they're away from their families, but that's also true for those who serve us in other ways: doctors, nurses, our veterans, our service people, right? Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're depressed, because it's situational. We all get past, you know what? All of this happens from November to December, and then in January, it's a whole new ball game. It's not going to go on forever. The holiday season that we know as Christmas, or this gift giving season, it
Well,
doesn't last
Christmas,
forever.
Hanukkah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
doesn't last forever. There's other stuff that we can get into. Just ride the wave until it's over and know that it will be over and move on. Was that
I know.
helpful?
That is helpful. I do want to bring up another issue that I know is definitely something that is impacting me to a different degree this year, but definitely the last few years. So there are some people, you've talked about certain things being situational, but there are people who this time of the year when we're supposed to be together with family and people are coming home and so on and so forth, and maybe you have some traditions with certain people, and then now they are no longer here, not because they are temporarily away, but because
Mhm.
they have transitioned, they have passed
Right,
on, they have
right.
died. And so my younger brother transitioned 3 years ago. Next week will be the third year anniversary of his
Mhm.
transitioning. And um Thanksgiving, which is already a day of mourning for me because it makes no sense to me that we come
Right,
together to give thanks for stealing people's land and genocide and all of that. But at any rate,
right.
that was the last holiday that I spent with him before he made his transition. And so on that day, even though I had family here, it was also remembering what that was like, and
Mhm.
just knowing that he's not here. And I'm increasingly in contact with friends and other people who have recently lost loved ones, or it's been compounded this year because, well, I'd lost my father or my mother in the past, and now I've lost a sibling, and so the number of
Mhm.
losses is compounding,
Mhm.
and they are not looking forward to the holiday time. The sense of loneliness, of isolation. Any tips for how people navigate that?
Mhm.
Not just this season, but even
Yeah,
beyond. Definitely feels more intense during this time.
right. You know what? And this is speaking from a place of personal growth, but also professional growth. So it's both of those things. Set a new normal, because you're right. There are traditions that we had, that we shared, that we love. And when we lose the components to those traditions, it's not a tradition anymore. So we have to create a new normal and create buy-in and allow space for buy-in from everybody in creating and shaping, co-creating what that new normal will be. I lost two of my
Mm.
brothers, well, three of
That
my
that is
brothers.
that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Create a new normal. You
Create a
can't
new
just
normal. Mhm.
try to live what the past was.
Right.
What is it going to look like moving forward? Thank you. That's really powerful.
Yeah, because it does change. One of my siblings, who is an ancestor now, loved Christmas so much that they would start giving their children their Christmas gifts in October. Like
Oh
he just,
wow.
yeah, just loved it though. I'm not
Oh wow.
just loved it, just loved it, and I understand where a lot of that came from. Um, but they also was just very generous at this time of the year, period. Whoever came into the house, they ate. If they didn't have a formal gift for him, like he was just pulling off money for him, because he loved the spirit of the season. He's gone. That changed. For a while the family still tried to hang on to that, but it's like trying to walk in shoes that you know are too small, but they're cute. It's like, these shoes are cute.
Been there, done that.
I'm gonna make them work, even though my feet hurt.
Hurt.
There is not work. It's not
Worth
working.
it.
It is not working. Let it go, and it's okay. You don't dishonor the memory of the people who have transitioned on by creating a new normal. In fact, you're honoring them.
Mm. Yeah.
You have an opportunity to honor them, and
100%.
and give yourself grace. If
Mm.
you don't feel the same way about holiday gatherings or special moments like you used to, it's okay. The reality is you're not supposed to feel the same way. How can you?
I want to say when you were also talking about honoring what a friend or someone in your life might be going through and giving them that space
Hmm.
to show up for themselves or to do what they need to for themselves. I was just thinking about it in terms of doing the same for yourself.
Yes.
honoring you, because I feel, and as a mother, as a wife, sometimes there's all this pressure, you got to do this and have the house smelling a certain way and cook a million pies and so on and so forth. What happens when you're not really in that state of mind, in that mind frame? And I think it's really important to be in touch with ourselves,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and in not judging ourselves or judging only ourselves. um Judge only yourself, Joy.
Mhm,
Basically saying, okay, what do I need in this season,
mhm,
and how do I communicate that to my loved ones? And
mhm.
for me at this point, take it or leave it. I'm going to be as gentle as I can. This is what, especially since my children are no longer babies. But this is what I can do
Mhm.
based on my capacity at this time, and you all are welcome to do this, whatever else you want to do, and my feelings won't be hurt. Um, and
Hold on.
go
But
ahead.
that's important. You said my feelings won't be hurt. So when you think about, even like, we keep using the judge only yourself, and that's important because you're not judging other people for not being where you are. Your feelings won't be hurt. Give that gift to your family if they make sure that they understand, hey, listen, the fact that I'm not feeling this in the way that you are doesn't mean that I don't love you. And it doesn't mean that I don't want you to feel it or that you have to hide it, because you don't. And I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to be mad at you. I'm not going to look at you side eyed. Nobody's going to be catching strays in my words or my comments or things that I do, because I'm going to low key try to make you feel bad for enjoying what you want to
You're doing.
enjoy.
Yes.
Have that. I am not going to judge you. So yes.
And I'm going to welcome people, encourage people to get as creative as you want to with these
Mhm.
holidays within your budget. So
Yes.
something that we started to do years ago, just different traditions. We take an annual picture,
Mhm.
a family picture every year, whatever the budget is. Sometimes we buy clothes, sometimes it's like, let's rummage through what we have and make that work. But it's a memory that, we're
Mhm.
creating, and we've now got, I don't know, 15 plus years of these pictures that we can look
Mhm.
back on and laugh about the process of. We've had some photographers who've caught us when we're fussing right before you get the perfect picture. So those are fun as well. Um, Something else that we do in my community, we have this festival of lights. I think there are quite a
Mhm.
few communities that have
Right.
that. And so we make hot chocolate, we make chin chin, which is a Nigerian dessert,
Mm.
and I
Yes, it
fry goat
is.
meat. I need to send you some chin chin, right? We haven't made any this season. Um, and we pile into the car and we drive out to this place, and you're seeing the lights, and you can turn on the Christmas radio station and just listen to the Christmas songs, and we sing along with them. And so, just silly. And we're eating and drinking hot chocolate. All it costs us, I think, I don't know if the price has gone up, it's like $10 a car. But it's like 3 hours that we are
Mhm.
together in this car going through this stuff and having this experience. This year, I intend to take my godchildren and some other little human beings in my life to the zoo, because the zoo is having a whole winter
Yeah.
wonderland kind of thing. And, I think it would just be awesome. They get away from devices, and we go out and have fun, and they're going to get that in a book. That's all they're getting from me. Their parents can do whatever else they want to do.
But you know what? You say that now, all they're getting is this and the book, but you're giving them something so powerful that
Exactly.
will last for a long time, which is a positive memory.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that if anything, if they, when they grow up, as they move away, as they engage in their own families, they will remember that time that they went to the zoo with the Anellis and they did this wonderful thing. Don't discount the impact of a memory, because one way or another, you're going to make one. The question is, are you going to make a positive one or one that scars? And I'm thinking that what we want to have happen are those positive memories, but that requires some intentionality. It doesn't always require money, as you just described, but it does require intention.
And I think that would be a huge takeaway if I were not part of this discussion, but just listening, is that intentionality, is that
Mhm.
with the marketing, and there's so much of it, it's
Right.
not just on your TV, it's on your phone, it's on
It's
the billboards,
everywhere.
it's
It's
everywhere, it's at your job, it's the when my kids were younger, it's the holiday parties in the classrooms and all of that.
Mhm.
um I think it's easy to just feel like, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that. And there were times as a parent where I felt very stressed
Oh,
about
absolutely.
all the things. And then I need to assist my husband in finding gifts for his, co-workers or this. And I've left all of that. He does all of that himself now. I don't know why I ever thought that I needed to take that on. But I think just intentionality.
Mhm.
What do you want the season to be like? What kind of memories do you want to make? What impact do you want to have on people? I think it's really important, without overburdening yourself, to be available to your loved ones,
Mhm.
to pay attention to how you're feeling, how you're seeing other people are showing up as well. Um, I definitely check in on friends who've lost,
Mhm.
loved ones during this time, just to let them know someone is thinking about them. I do not do the Christmas cards or the Christmas letters anymore. That was so stressful to me. I would buy Christmas cards and still not be done sending them out, and it'll be January.
Right.
I actually still have a stack of cards from 2011, when I had these grandiose ideas of what I was
Mhm.
going to do. And it's a reminder of, pace yourself and do what you can and be in the moment.
And
And
if it
just,
doesn't work, it doesn't work. Let it go. Go to the next thing.
yeah.
Maybe the Christmas cards and the Christmas letter won't work for you, but maybe you can get some of those slice and bake cookies and slice. Or, hey, here's a tip for everybody who doesn't know this. If there is, um, can I say Gordon Food Service in your radio show? I don't know if
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
a sponsor.
absolutely. You can. We're giving all the tips.
But
Absolutely.
they have the most amazing holiday cookies at this time of the year, and you can buy it in a box, and it's maybe 3 dozen, 4 dozen, and put your own frosting on it, your own spin on it. Slap that bad boy on some cookie sheets that you got at one of those stores where you can buy stuff for $1.25 or less, and make it a gift. You don't have to make the cookies from scratch, and do all of that labor, but you want to give something that's easy and that's heartfelt. It's a matter of what comes from your heart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when you here's the other thing, when you're doing it from your heart, you're protecting your mental wellness because you are attending to your state of being, right? Because we said mental wellness is about your state of being at any given time. And if you're stressed, you're not protecting your mental wellness. If you're able to pivot and find things that bring you joy and free you from feeling as though you have to do things in a certain kind of way, that's also a part of your mental wellness.
So, last major question, and then I just have a little one that I always ask my guests at the end of our show. So, as you were talking just now, I'm thinking about that family gathering, and you're already feeling anxiety because you know that one auntie's gonna say, "Are you still single?"
Mm,
Or, your kids are so bad, or that uncle who is going to drink too much and maybe say inappropriate things or whatever. But there's some anxiety that sometimes people feel about getting back into family dynamics, um, you know, trauma that has not been talked about, that has not been healed.
mhm.
What advice would you have for those people who are in a situation where it's like, yeah, every time we get together as family, there's some drama, or I don't feel heard, just like I wasn't heard as a child, or I feel judged.
Mhm.
Any last minute advice for people who are like, I really don't even want to hang out with family.
So give yourself permission to pursue a space that will be safe for you. Why do you want to go someplace that's not a safe place for you?
Well, because then they're going to talk about me. There she goes again.
Okay.
What's her problem? Why isn't she here?
Because it's not safe.
Mm, mm,
Because it is not safe. And it is absolutely okay to say that. When you judge only yourself, you give yourself not even just permission, but you empower yourself to stand up for yourself,
And not to feel guilty for
not
standing
to
up for
feel
yourself.
guilty because you are answering only to yourself.
Well, isn't that selfish though?
No, that's survival.
Oh, somebody needs to catch that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
survival.
all too often we sacrifice ourselves.
Hmm.
And to what purpose? And I always tell people, our children are watching, and I want to, as much as possible, model for them what it
Yes,
looks like to
yeah.
care for yourself, because when you care for yourself, I think you can more effectively care for other
Care for
people.
others, right? Put your own
So
mask on first before you.
your own mask on
Right.
first. Yes, yes, absolutely. I do want to share this really quickly, just as I think about how I approach the holiday season and that intentionality that we talked about. I started a more intentional fitness routine,
Mhm.
if you will, before the holiday season came along. I know I'm going to want fruit pizza, which is does not sound anywhere. It's not anywhere as healthy as it sounds.
It's delicious though.
It is delicious. I know that there's certain things that I'm going to indulge in that I only do, at this time of the year. Um, and so I started my exercise routine, like being a lot more intentional.
Mhm.
I think getting sufficient sleep, because all of us, nobody functions well when they're sleep deprived. So to the extent that you have any control over that, I mean, if you're working two jobs and so on and so forth, yeah, but get some rest. I would say watch the alcohol, watch
Mhm.
the other substances, because that can
Mhm.
always tilt people over to, a place where that they don't want to be. Um, anything else that you would share with me? I'm staying away from the news. I'm
Mhm.
reading and doing things that bring me joy anyway. Um, so anything else that you would share? Any closing tips for people as they navigate reaching for and embracing joy during this time?
You know what? I would also say treat yourself as though you are an introvert for the day. So when we think about introversion and extroversion, and a lot of times we get it wrong in our society and we think it's about shyness and not liking people and wanting to be by yourself. And that's not it. It's about where we get our energy from. And some people are wired where they get their energy from other people, being around other people. And so all of this busyness going is just keeping them going. Other people can function in those settings, but it drains them of their energy. And I would say in both cases, you are still drained of your energy. You still need to replenish your energy source. And so take a nap, take a break,
Mm.
try to sleep an additional 2 hours. Some people probably have to just like do it incrementally, Aya. Um,
You gonna call me out on this global?
but add another hour or two to your sleep routine, because when we allow ourselves the chance to reset, we allow our bodies the chance to reset, then we are better able to be the people that we want to be, and we're in a better position to manage our mental wellness.
Thank you for that. So, in 30 seconds, how would you define freedom?
Freedom for me is not worrying about what other people think in such a way that I will change my life. I am no longer changing my life to accommodate other people.
Wow. You know what? I love it. It's a question we pose to almost all of our guests, and I think it's just something that gives the rest of us food for thought.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for being our guest today and for the wealth of knowledge. I know we will have you back if you will agree to come back.
Of course.
For all of our guests, please go to our YouTube channel, Rethinking Freedom, subscribe. Our show next week is one that, I mean, all of our shows you don't want to miss. But next week, we're actually going to be talking with some guests who have grappled with um, weight their whole
Mm.
lives. They
Oh my.
have grappled with just not being that size they wanted to be, with the health issues that came with it. even dealt with life and death situations in terms of health, and have figured out how to address their weight issues. And we're going to be hearing from them as they share the good, the bad, and everything in between, but how they are finding success. It's going to be a very vulnerable time, but I think one that will be very enlightening for all of us. So join us again next Monday, 7 a.m. Central Time on all the platforms. And you can catch our podcast on all the platforms. Thank you for joining us on Rethinking Freedom.